Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The unbridled export of raw chromite ore from South Africa is threatening to smash South Africa's mature chrome value chain, which contributes 42 billion rand a year to GDP. Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer tells us more about this. Welcome, Martin.
Thanks, Shannon.
Now, Merafe CEO Stuart Elliott, in his results presentation earlier this week, his outlook was a lot less bullish than the year before. What's changed in that industry?
Well, things have changed from May last year. They started to decline in the ferrochrome industry, and you can see now the industry has closed 30% of its capacity because the market is down. But on top of that, you get a situation of South Africa shooting itself in the foot. We host a lot of chrome, and we've got a massive beneficiation capacity to turn that into ferrochrome, which is a value add, which the government has been crying out for. This is already happening. Beneficiation has happened within the ferrochrome industry. We've got all the furnaces, we've got all the capacity. We do things technologically well. We cut down on the emissions and we cut down on electricity use. So it's a fantastic industry we got here. And not only does it contribute a massive 42 billion rand a year to the gross domestic product, but it employs 200,000 people. Now, if we go on like this, the first knock will be 60,000 jobs will be lost out of there. Because what's happening is China is getting half of its raw chrome from South Africa. So China, which doesn't host any chrome, produces ferrochrome because it feeds it into its stainless steel industry. But we would like to sell them ferrochrome. But because South Africans, particularly those involved in UG2 mining and independent chrome ore producers, trade and they get a good price from China, they sell off the raw chrome, which we don't like to encourage here, but it's happening. So you get that trade, and through that, China has been able to take share away from our ferrochrome producers. You could see that the ferrochrome industry last year lost about 300 ton potential, and that was the exact gain of China. So if it continues like this industry will really decline in a way that is not going to be good for South Africa. So that is why you had this change of sentiment from Stuart Elliott, who is saying, look, something urgent needs to be done.
Now, what gives ferrochrome miner Merafe encouragement that government is going to assist and not allow the export of raw chrome out of South Africa?
Yeah, because it's been going on for a long time now. I think they started talking about this in 2006, and the previous CEO of Merafe Resources, Steve Phiri, would get up and say, no, the government is going to intervene, we're going to get new legislation just as India has got, and we're not going to allow our raw chrome to leave the country, and we're going to protect our ferrochrome industry because it's a value-add industry, it's beneficiation, that's the magic word. We've been trying to get this throughout other industries, we've got it in our industry, but he couldn't persuade government over a long period of time, which is why, one wondered where the enthusiasm was coming that suddenly the government was going to turn. But it seems that over that 4-year period, the whole industry, not just Merafe, which is really part of the Xstrata Merafe chrome venture, and then you get the Samancors, you get ASA, you get IFM, you get Hernick. They've all developed a document which has been presented to the government saying, when we had our electricity crisis, the big complaint by the government was, why didn't you tell us? Well, we did tell you, but you weren't listening. Now, we're telling you again, this is our problem. We don't have the right to intervene. You do. This is the situation. We're going to lose 60,000 jobs, and it'll continue to slide. We're going to lose market share. We're warning you. This industry is in serious decline. It's being smashed by ourselves. We're doing it. We leave it to you. What are you going to do about it? We would hate to have a shrinking industry. We'd like a growing industry. We'd at least like to hold where we are. We can't. So we're warning you now so that you don't come and tell us later and say, well, why didn't you tell us, as we had the big blackout in 2008 and they turned off all the lights, etc. We don't want that to happen. with the ferrochrome industry, so be warned. And I think the government has taken this seriously. The Department of Mineral Resources, which is compiling a beneficiation policy, about to roll out that beneficiation policy, says, well, hey, we've got beneficiation already, let's not destroy that. They've gone along to Treasury and said to Treasury, what can you do? Treasury's looked at its beneficiation possibilities. It's seen possibly we can introduce an export tax, and they only want this export tax of $100 a tonne as a breather. They want some breathing space because they're starting to sink there and they need something urgent. And so there is an indication that this will happen, that there will be a short-term intervention of taxes which will make it more expensive for China to produce and therefore lift the price of ferrochrome. And then they want to engage in a medium to long-term intervention, which will involve a quota system to make sure that this very precious commodity, chrome, does not leave the country in raw form, and that we add as much value to it as we can so that the country benefits.
Now, what is the likelihood of an export tax on chrome exports being implemented, and how would such a tax benefit Merafe as well as the wider chrome industry?
Yeah, I think it's going to benefit all the producers, and this is always the debate that you have. The producers, they get into a spot, they want intervention, and they saying, look, give us $100 a tonne tax. The purchaser of this raw chrome ore, China, will have to pay that. And this will just lift the prospects. It will protect us slightly. And all along, of course, the government has been discussing with National Treasury, which is always a difficult body to convince, that we need to do something so that the country can add value, which is called beneficiation, to its metals and minerals. And Treasury has already, in principle, said, okay, you can use these taxes. In terms of World Trade Organization rules, this will be like a short-term measure, so I don't think there's going to be a problem. It's not an outright ban, so I don't think that the WTO would object to this. And the engagement is with China. So I don't think this free trade agreement we have with the European Union is going to come into play. So it seems that the way is open for this tax to be imposed, and the indications are it's going to happen quite soon.
Now, you briefly touched on the longer-term solution to the beneficiation problem is the imposition of a mechanism to control the flow of ferrochrome out of South Africa. Can you tell us about the proposal that Merafe's come up with? Yeah.
Well, you see, what's happened is, unexpectedly, the industry has suddenly realized that platinum miners, because they are no longer concentrating entirely on Merensky Reef, what we know as Merensky Reef, which was normally the higher grade reef, so they targeted that first. They're also going for upper group 2, UG2 reef. In going for UG2 reef, they generate chrome in their waste stream. So they are one of the big factors in this. It was an unexpected large flow of chrome. And then, of course, you've got independent chrome miners as well, and people mining nickel that suddenly get chrome and they want something to do with it, which is not what the industry anticipated, because the industry, the ferrochrome industry, the chrome miners, they know how long it takes to build a mine. They know how long it takes for that to come into the market. They didn't anticipate that suddenly they'd have this quick flow. Now, what do you do with that flow? You'll find the traders, like Metmar, which is listed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, they're saying, hang on guys, you can't just stop this trade with this tax. If you impose this $100 a tonne, it's going to destroy the independence. It's going to destroy the people who process this UG2 waste, and there's a lot of near mine community involvement. These people have suddenly got a livelihood. You're going to take this away from them. So what are you going to do? There needs to be a balancing act. So if these particular communities now are not going to be allowed to export, or they're not going to be allowed to trade freely, maybe through the trading system, they should not be penalized in a way that they get a very bad price. So, there needs to be this longer term mechanism where people who sell to the local beneficiation industry, to the local ferrochrome industry, that their price is fair, because there is an intervention now. It's not a normal free enterprise. So hopefully they'll be able to give them a better price that's fair. And they're talking about credits that these people will earn. So I don't know whether that will be a credit that can come off your taxes. It hasn't been explained yet. But it could be some sort of situation where, the locals get a price that it does not include what it costs to transport. It's a long distance, it has to be transported. The chrome has to be transported all the way to China. That costs. So they shouldn't actually be paid that. But perhaps there can be some arrangement for a local price that's fair, and where it is slightly below, they can earn credits from which they benefit.
Well, thank you very much, Martin. We'll definitely keep an eye out on that one.
Thanks very much, Shannon.
That's the show for today. Join us again next time for more news and insight into what's happening in the mining world.